So my best day is, I'm going to sit up straight, is probably every day at the lake. You just sit in the sun, and sometimes you go for a drive to Dairy Queen to get a Blizzard, and you listen to loud music in the car. And then you have dinner with a bunch of family members who don't always like you, but there's always mashed potatoes, so that's good.
I would have to say my best memory is actually last week at the track sectionals. So my senior year, and it was the very last meet of my track career. And despite the fact that we lost by 1/100th of a second, it's still just the feeling of, we might make it to state was actually really nice. And we bonded, the whole team bonded. We were waiting for that one moment. And even though it didn't go the way we wanted, it still was great.
My best day was probably when it was a Friday before spring break, and I found out that I had made top 15 for Mr. DHS, and I got a job offer, and I had a date for prom, and I was going to New York the next day. So overall, it was pretty Gucci.
Congratulations. My best day ever would probably be when I was reborn through Jesus Christ and He came into my life. Just this sense of peace, and I just knew that I was always going to have someone there for me, and just the overwhelming feeling that I would never be alone again. It was just so great to finally not have to rely on myself, and it's changed my life ever since.
My best memory would be any day that ends with a family dinner, because I know I'm going to miss that when I go to college. And my worst memory would be when I came home on vacation and we had to put my dog to sleep, because I really loved it.
Well, my worst memory was a couple weeks ago, and my bird broke both of his wings, and he actually, I called 20 different vet places to try and figure out how to get him fixed, and he ended up dying on my chest. It was the worst thing ever. He did this thing where, I'll never forget it, he spread his tail feathers, and his head lifted up, he was like, and then he just kind of and he kind of just collapsed, and I was on the phone with my cousin, and I just couldn't breathe, and I have never cried so hard in my life. It was just, it was so awful, and I'll never forget that. It was the first thing, that's the first thing I've ever seen die before in my life. It was...
My worst day, I was pretty young. My grandma had just died from leukemia, and I hadn't known, and so I came home and everyone was at the house, and I didn't know why until my mom and my grandpa sat me down and told me that she had died, and I remember crying and just hating everybody, and that was probably my worst day.
And then my worst day ever was actually this winter for indoor track, and someone actually spit at me and called me a slut, and that was just really hard. And after I got home, I got in a really big fight with my parents, and it was just so much to deal with. I mean, someone spitting at you, you don't really think it would affect you, but it was the most disrespectful thing anyone's ever done to me.
My best memory is Mr. DHS, because that was just honestly one of the greatest days of my life, because I feel like everyone in that school got to feel for each other by seeing everyone else around them cry. And that was just really great that I could bring them together like that. My worst memory is when my parents got divorced and I had to watch my mom move all of her and my stuff out of my dad's house, and it's just never been the same.
Okay, so my worst memory is when I was 4 years old and we were driving to Missouri on vacation, and we drove for 8 hours, and and I got my bike out while my parents were sitting at the camper, and I rode it off a bridge and scraped my knee, and it hurt a lot.
Okay, my best memory would have to be weighing as much as I did my freshman year, which was like 325, and losing about 150 pounds, and then gaining about 50 pounds of muscle to working out so I can be ready for my senior year, so I can, get ready for college and all the ladies and whatnot. But my real plan was actually to qualify for state in shot put, and when I found out I was seated first in state, when it comes down to it, that I had a good chance of getting first, my parents told me I couldn't do it because I got to be on a final, which was terrible, and I just kind of spilled in my good and my worst memory.
Okay, well, my best memory was when I was 4, and I just met my cousin Danielle, because we weren't really cousins, and we just hugged each other, and it was the best day I've ever had, because we've been sisters ever since.
Where I'm going for my best day would probably be 5-10 years down the road when I'm at my wedding, and I get walked down the aisle with my dad, and then as I'm standing at the altar, my bride walks down. And she just looks stunning, and it's just going to be amazing, and I cannot wait to finally meet someone I'm going to marry and the love of my life.
My worst day ever was probably last May during junior year. I had just gotten, it was like a week later that I just had my third procedure I was on my third doctor because they did not know what was wrong with me. And my mom got off the phone with my test results, and she told me that they had not, again, found something. And it was the most heartbreaking news because nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. And I remember just going upstairs and laying in my bed and just wishing that I could just die already because I was so sick of being sick.
I guess my best memory would have to be the day that my brother was born. He just looked really hard to explain. You know how babies, they always say like, oh, he was so small in the bed and everything, and when you first see him, he's so tiny and helpless, but he wasn't. And it wasn't that he was big, in the literal sense, but he just had like a presence. And he still has that presence. And I think that that's why it wasn't necessarily that day, but just the events that it set into motion. He reminds me a lot of myself. He's really ambitious and we're very close. And I think that would have been my favorite day.
You fucked it, friend, it's on its head, it struck the street.